It is destructive, particularly for a Democrat, to be discrediting universal health care by waging a false campaign.
He does eliminate the Affordable Care Act, eliminates private insurance, eliminates Medicare, eliminates Medicaid, TRICARE, Children's Health Insurance Program.
We don't eliminate Medicare. We expand Medicare to all people.
Since when do Democrats attack one another on universal health care?
Back in 1994, you said that momentum for a single-payer system would sweep the country. That sounds Sanders-esque, but you don't feel that way anymore. Why not?
Well, the revolution never came, and I waited.
They even managed to buy off old foes. For her silence, Hillary was rewarded, and she became the second largest recipient in the Senate of healthcare industry contributions.
But you don't feel that way anymore. Why not?
Well, the revolution never came.
Which enemy are you most proud of?
Well, in addition to the NRA, the health insurance companies, the drug companies, the health insurance companies, the drug companies. I never took a position on Keystone until I took a position on Keystone. We're either going to be dependent on dirty oil from the Gulf or dependent on dirty oil from Canada.
As president, would you sign a bill allowing the Keystone XL pipeline?
If it's undecided when I become president, I will answer your question.
When Hillary Clinton becomes Secretary of State, Bill Clinton gives 10 speeches for about $2 million for a bank called TD Bank Investment Group, one of the largest shareholders in Keystone XL pipeline. 3 months later, Hillary Clinton greenlights the pipeline. I never took a position on Keystone.
Is he a traitor or a hero?
He broke the laws of the United States. He could have been a whistleblower. He could have gotten all of the protections of being a whistleblower. He could have raised all the issues that he has raised. And I think there would have been a positive response to that.
First of all, there are not that many channels for national security and intelligence whistleblowers. They are excluded from most avenues available to other whistleblowers. But second of all, Tom Drake and Bill Binney, Kirk Wiebe, and Ed Loomis did go through the proper channels, and all of them fell under criminal investigation for having done so.
You know, when I left law school, my first job was with the Children's Defense Fund.
Well, you know, Hillary Clinton's an old friend, but they're not friends in politics. We profoundly disagreed with the forms of the welfare reform bill.
By the time Bill and I left the White House, welfare rolls had dropped 60%.
You know, many years after that, when many people are pronouncing welfare reform a great success, you know, we've got growing child poverty. The poor are suffering.
My first job was with the Children's Defense Fund.
Welfare rolls had dropped 60%.
I'm sorry to say what I thought would happen has happened. This was a blunderbuss. This was just an axe, a hatchet. 6 million, 2% of our population have no income except those food stamps. The food stamps is the sole thing that stands between them and being totally without any income.
Welfare rolls had dropped 60%.
Yeah, I think it's absurd to suggest she's a friend of children who are in need or families. This is a woman who, when her husband was governor, I first met her at that time when I went down to interview him for the Los Angeles Times, and he was starting his presidential run. And they were bragging about their welfare reform, which destroyed what existed of support for poor children in Arkansas. Then as president, her husband, with her full-throated approval, destroyed the aid to families with dependent children, which 70% of the people on that program were children. They destroyed that program, and we don't even have an accounting of poor children anymore. They're off the radar.
He was going to give immunity to the only industry in America. Only industry in America.
Do you want to shield gun companies from lawsuits
Of course
or not? Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive.
I take a backseat to no one when you look at my record and standing up and fighting for progressive values.
You know, I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
Well, why do they make millions of dollars of campaign contributions? They expect to get something. Everybody knows that.
I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is.
What about our traffic problem?
9, 11.
I represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out. Quit foreclosing on homes.
Now, who's exactly to blame for the housing crisis? I think there's plenty of blame to go around. Home buyers who paid extra fees to avoid documenting their income should have known they were getting in over their heads.
We cannot keep imprisoning more people than anybody else in the world.
This bill would have put more police on the street, would have locked up violent offenders so they never could get out again, would have given more prison construction money.
They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life. Take the trade deal.
We are making progress toward finalizing a far-reaching new trade agreement called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The so-called TPP will lower barriers, raise standards, and drive long-term growth across the region.
Now, looking back on it, it doesn't have the results we thought it would have in terms of access to the markets, more exports, et cetera.
So are you saying that as of today, this is not something you could support?
As of today, I am not in favor.
You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly last week, you're against it.
I did say when I was Secretary of State 3 years ago that I hoped it would be the gold standard.
And she said, I had hoped back then that it would become the gold standard. She said it was the gold standard.
She called it the gold
over
standard.
and over again. She supported it unequivocally.
I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life.
Colombia has the highest rate of killings of trade unionists in the world.
I oppose the deal. I will vote against the deal, and I will do everything I can to urge the Congress to reject the Colombian free trade deal.
It's the largest independently controlled oil company in Colombia. Delivered a couple $1 million to the Clinton Foundation. She changed her position.
One of our top goals is to complete free trade agreements with Colombia and Panama.